info here before we begin. These are just my opinions, just my analysis based on what I know of the characters so far in the show. I have not been reading the manga, I've only been following the show, and I did just recently catch up on the series myself. I actually spent the last 2 months watching pretty much all of the episodes of One Piece. Well, yeah, all of the episodes up to date. And so, yeah, I just want to share my opinions about the characters, and I wanted to start with Usopp because, in my opinion, he's one of the more in-depth characters, actually. Probably one of the most complex characters on the crew, at least as it stands right now. And that's saying a lot because he doesn't have like a very deep backstory, but he does have important people in his life that are important to the story as well. So we're going to get into that a little bit. We're going to also talk about my opinions on the character as a whole and my disappointments with the character. So we're going to go ahead and get into that. I hope you guys enjoy. Usopp after time skip was the greatest disappointment for a character so far in the series. Not to say that Oda doesn't have something in store for him, but he definitely does show some power all on his own, and his dad is on board our favorite red hair's ship. Albeit not physically strong, Usopp has some pretty cool moments, even if not always presented as such. I see you, Usopp boy, Soldier King. I have the most hope for you, but let's talk about it. He ends up lacking after the time skip for the most part, not even really competing for a space, but it feels like he suddenly slipped down to where Franky and Brook are in relevance. Not that I hate Brook or Franky, but anyway. After Dressrossa, Usopp is mostly unused or inconsequential in the sagas ahead up to current. He hasn't been of much significance. He's never shined brighter to me than his moments in Water 7 saga, and his bond with the late Marigot was mysterious and yet beautiful. It was something the crew was never able to see, at least not from Usopp's point of view. I mean, he was really having full-on conversations with the Mary. He was down to fight and did in fact fight with Luffy over the Marigot. I loved his passion for the ship and his instances of bravery, his very real feelings of frustration at his own shortcomings. Then he brings us to the moments where, knowing the eventual outcome would be certain doom, still against his cowardice nature, Usopp chooses to stand for his beliefs, his friends, and even maybe most importantly his ship. Usopp is a big liar, well known for it, and often it's known that he's not taken seriously by the crew. He will admit to them that he's afraid or scared, but turn around and say that his story will be that he's brave and adventurous. But the funny thing about it is that it's so true. He may lie a lot, but here's the facts. He became a pirate. He truly did face terrible foes and won. He's liberated armies, freed slaves, caused enemies to change sides even. He's always shown to be very crafty and cunning, but not always quick on his feet. He's rarely needed by the monster trio in the case of combat, at least not on purpose. There was that one time in Water 7 arc when Soldier King was cuffed to Zora. Still, we can't forget about our boy Usopp and how crafty that he was. I mean, before we had our boy Franky, he was our MacGyver. He was our crafty MacGyver. Nami confides in him her concerns about their level of strength compared to the monsters in the group, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji. But his response was to present her with a new weapon that she graciously accepts and eventually hones her skills with it to become quite formidable, even to this day on the show. I mean, she upgrades it numerous times to the point now it truly has become a weapon all her own. Much later in the series, she befriends a powerful cloud named Zeus. It's a familiar that like Big Mama had. Like, I don't know, she's crazy with this thing. I don't know, her powers are just OP, but they have free will apparently, because he leaves, he defects, and he joins her, and he basically makes her weapon even more powerful. So the climate attack has been upgraded by her. She has learned how to use it on her own and honed it into her own thing, and she's a navigator. Usopp knew this, and he created this weapon with capabilities that she would be able to understand eventually. When we first see her using this weapon, she's struggling. She doesn't know what she's doing, but then she realizes, I'm a weather woman. I understand how the weather works. I can make this work. At the end of the day, Nami, Chopper, and Usopp are constantly subjecting themselves to situations far beyond their capabilities, but they go on in recognizing that they love what they do. They love being a part of this team. They love going out and risking leg for limb. They know that this is what it is to be a part of Luffy's crew. And I think that shit is amazing because they are way out of their league. You know what I mean? But at the same time, even Sanji and Zoro and Luffy, they recognize this. They recognize that they have people on their team that are not strong, and that's not their main concern. They know that everyone on their team has special abilities and skills that they don't have themselves, and they value that. And it's not just the skills, though. They value the friendship. They value what they can do for each other and the fact that they're willing to do things for each other. I got a little bit off the subject, but it's just that squad shit. I love that shit, man. I really do love that shit about the show. And that's really what got me into the show, is the camaraderie, man. It's like, it's so much thicker. It's so much deeper than it has been in any other show that I've seen. But anyway, I digress. They go on in recognizing that they have made up their minds that this is what it means to follow Luffy. This is what it means to follow Luffy. They could go on and do other things if they wanted to, or they could have, you know, before they started getting bounties all on their heads and stuff. But they don't choose this life. And that's something that they all share, at least among them. That's something they all share. And that shit right there, that shot is good. But one thing I like about Usopp is how mentally weak he is. He still tries to fight that part of himself, but he needs to lie to himself to motivate himself. Sometimes he can't face himself. Often this is the case, actually. Ultimately, Usopp is constantly thinking less of himself despite his ability to craft, but that skill gets overshadowed later and nearly forgotten once we get Franky, who I begin to like, but then just fully don't care at all about anymore. Or no, going off topic for a second, I almost feel like Franky could have just stayed in Water 7 or died, honestly. My newfound affinity toward him would not have fizzled out over time, which it did, because he's just kind of a lame character. He's just lackluster, in my opinion. He's just meant to be some kind of comic relief. But then we get Brook, who is yet another perv trope. I like Brook aside from that, but his arrival almost felt too quick. I nearly forgot that he was supposed to be a lead character in an important role in Thriller Bark. You know what I mean? I kind of thought that he could have been left there too. I just wasn't really sure about those characters there. The crew was already objecting to Brook. I was right alongside them, objecting. But, Usopp post Sniper King, he just kind of sucks. I hate to say it. He has nothing great. He has a lucky win, and that's basically treated, as this situation where he gets treated like a god, similar to how Buggy was treated during Marineford with all of the prisoners that he didn't even really save. They were just trying to follow him. I'm reading from the Zelda Encyclopedia. Yeah. Four Sword, power split 4 ways. The legendary Four Sword has the power to split its holder into 4 bodies with 4 blades. Like the Master Sword, it is enshrined in a pedestal in a sanctuary and is used over multiple eras to quell those who seek power over others for their own nefarious gains. Also, like the Master Sword, the Four Sword can be used to seal away evil. The Four Sword Sanctuary is guarded by Princess Zelda and 6 other Shrine Maidens. The Four Sword is said to be inseparable from Light Force, the source of all life energy. It was the tiny Minish people, known to the Hylians as the Picori, who created the Picori Blade, which would become the Four Sword. After Vadi destroys the Picori Blade in the Minish Cap, the fragments are forged into the White Sword. Once the blade is infused with the 4 elements, fire, earth, wind, and water, it becomes the Four Sword. The Four Sword is used to seal Vadi on several occasions after the Minish Cap. In Four Sword Adventures, Link uses it to finally defeat Vadi for good, and in the process, the sword also seals away the mindless incarnation of Ganon. The blade has lain dormant in its sanctuary ever since. I think that some of Usopp's best moments were also his worst character moments. During the persona, he takes on Soga King, which is Sniper King. He and Luffy had already had this big fight over the fate of the Marigo. Marigo was already, down the drain pretty much. It was already down for the count, but that did not matter to our boy, Usopp. And oh boy, did they end up getting into a fight, and he definitely lost, but he put up the most impressive fight of his pirating career, and against a friend no less. But even though he said he would not help the crew anymore after that, he does. He still does. He dresses up as this ridiculous character. He calls himself the Soga King, and he goes on and does it. He's wearing a mask and everything. It's obvious that it's Usopp, but only our Captain Luffy doesn't see through the tinted glass that clearly hides the friend's familiar face behind it. But Usopp lies to protect his feelings, even when he lies knowing that he's only fooling himself. He has to do it in order to keep going. My goodness. He still feels that he can't acknowledge his desire to stay with the crew, even though he knows that they will take him back. He just has to ask for forgiveness. But he's just too big for that. Too big for that. And right now is just not the time. And they know who he is, but they just don't have time to worry about that right now. My goodness, man. He just has to lie. He has to lie. He has to play this role. And even though he plays this role, his crew supports him. They just pretend not to care. Like they don't really acknowledge it. His friends, man, the love of his crew. I mean, you got your girl Nico, Robin, Zoro, Nami, Sanji, Chopper. Fuck all them other ones. Let's go wide, my nigga. Though you see time and time again that he wants to hear the crew recognize him, they know he knows no one wants to be a part, but they don't have time to deal with it right now. Robin is being taken and the team is being pulled in all directions, but they get their bearings together to go save Robin no matter what, and I love that. But all in all, let's face it, Usopp is a jerk who should have owned up to his failings and apologized, but he chose to go through the entire Water 7 conflict before accepting that he needed to apologize. He wasn't wrong about his assumptions. He knew Luffy wanted him to come back, but he did not count on Zoro stepping in and taking a stand against it. Now let's get this straight. That's not to say that Zoro doesn't want Usopp back either. It's just to say that I believe as his first mate, he felt he needed to teach both of these people a lesson, his captain and his crewmate. And I think he was right there. As a captain, Luffy can never hope to have a trusting and faithful team if he can accept so freely back somebody who would be willing to just run off like he did. And Usopp can't hope to be trusted by anyone if he feels he has the power to just disappear and show up and be welcomed back with open arms. It shows that Zoro sees the value in Usopp as he does with Luffy, but as Zoro strives to improve, he wants to ensure that the crew he has chosen to support also improves. I'll be revisiting Zoro in a separate vid. Yeah, man, but Zoro and Sanji, man, they say some of the coolest stuff. We're definitely going to get more development on them. I'm looking forward to the Zoro stuff for sure. But I'm pretty sure we'll get more stuff out of Usopp as well. I have high hopes for it. Obviously just not right now. I'm pretty sure we're going to get his stuff a little bit toward the end maybe. I believe he'll reach the same highs as he has in the past. I mean, I love how Usopp can make you get on the edge of your seat for him just to succeed. Like, you feel yourself rooting for him like Rudy. But man, the pain of his emotions during Water 7 arc, I just felt so heavy. I felt all these heavy emotions for him. And then like there's the moment where Nami sees that he's all beaten up and stuff and the money was taken. And he was just really torn up about it. Like he couldn't show his face. He was telling her he couldn't show his face to his crewmates, and he was so upset over it. he wouldn't even risk his life over it. And that asshole Franky, who becomes a part of our crew, by the way, you know what I mean? This guy is the one who ordered him to basically get his ass beat the fuck up, you know? He was so upset, but he was truly in an unfortunate situation, and no one in the crew, not even once, was ever depicted blaming Usopp. But we can feel the weight of his failure. We can feel the characters wanting to fuss and scream and yell, but I never felt like they wanted to blame Usopp. Usopp was emotionally destroyed by this point, and saying goodbye to Mary was it for him. That, coupled with the need to prove his strength, caused him to target his anger at the person trying to let go of the one thing he didn't want to lose most of all. In summary, I'd have to say I have high hopes for Usopp. I pretty much completely was disappointed when our characters returned, and Usopp was not nearly as changed on the inside as out. But the show has not come to a close yet. It feels like we spend a lot of time with new characters, a lot of which have become new crew members. So maybe we get some more Usopp in later episodes as the new additions settle down and the final stages of the series begins. I have hopes that more powerful emotions with this character will be experienced soon, and it's yet to be complete on the series, so I do hope to see where the story leads. Alright, it's been your boy Megaz0's. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be more coming soon. Like and subscribe. Ciao.